Hello everyone and welcome back to another Thursday Thought. Today we're going to get a little bit on the deep and sentimental side. I just wanted to talk about keeping your horse alive because of either quality of life or personal emotions. And I just wanted to touch on this subject because I've seen a lot of people talk about how important it is to keep that quality of life and to make that decision not because of your own emotional feelings, but because you know that the horse's quality of life is no longer viable and there's no reason to keep going. So, one thing I've seen two extremes of this, which is very interesting to me. One that I found very interesting, but also very enlightening and also very I think it's a very ethical practice. So there is actually this family that they own horses, and at a certain time when they still have a really good quality of life, they're still doing well, and where most people would be like, oh, they can live a bit longer, they can go a bit longer. They're not even really in pain. They have some arthritis issues, but we're taking care of that and managing it, whatever. When they get to that age, they just go ahead while they still have a good life and while they still feel good, and they put them down. And I see this as something that is very much a merciful thing, because, you imagine a horse getting to the end of its life, and even though it's still living and it's not in the worst pain possible, it's still struggling to do things. Like it can't eat hay anymore because it's lost all its teeth. Some horses, and now that can vary because some horses can keep their teeth pretty much up to the day they die, and some horses, they lose their teeth young. It's a genetic thing. But so, and instead of waiting until there's literally no more quality of life, period, and then putting them down, they put them down so that, because they don't think past, they're not thinking about what that causes. And they're not depressed because they're not going to get the next day of eating grass or whatever like that. Animals are different, horses are different. And so instead they fall asleep feeling good with life, having a fulfilled life, having a good ending to their life. And I thought that was a really cool idea and a cool concept, and definitely something I've been thinking about. Now, obviously, we don't just want to put down a horse just because, oh, they're in a good place right now, let's just put them down, whatever. But I've seen the opposite as well, and I've seen where people have horses that have had to have their legs amputated, and they have put prosthetics on their legs. And where some animals you can get away with that, horses, it's just, you watch how they use those prosthetics and everything, and it's just not very comfortable. The animal doesn't look comfortable, but it's all for the sake of giving them a chance, and this emotional thought, we just want to keep them alive because a lot of times they're young, they're not, and a lot of times it can happen because they rescued the horses from someone who was abusive and didn't take care of their legs, or some kind of rare disease. It happens. The biggest thing with Buddy was, this is just an example for me, is that he was old and he had, his issues with arthritis, but he was managing the pain well, and he was not really having that hard of a time as far as getting around. I mean, if you've seen anything of this property that we're on that he was living in, there's this really big hill, and I would find him at the top of the hill, I'd find him at the bottom of the hill. I never found him alone where he was struggling to get up the hill. So, he was living a really good life. With one eye, and I knew once he had lost the other eye that not only was it going to be hard, not impossible, it's never impossible to cater to a blind horse. There are plenty of blind horses out there that just live their lives, and they're very happy and they're very comfortable. But the problem is not only was he blind, but he had a lot of other health issues. And from the way that he had been blinded by that final eye, it was kind of like, okay, I think that it's something from the cancer, because what it basically looked like was as if, and this is going to get, I'm talking about a horse dying, but basically it looked like the cancer had pushed back behind his eye and actually crushed his eye from behind the eye, and that's what actually caused him to go blind in his final eye. And so to me it was like, okay, well, we get rid of this eye and we try to take care of him, and then what? Like, that's horrible. Can you imagine living like that? Because then the next thing could be you start losing function in your legs, you start losing this function, you start going through pain because you have this cancer that is essentially, we think was basically at that point brain cancer, because it was in the back of his head, and we didn't know, and he's older. He was 24, 25. I mean, he was an older horse. He was a senior horse. And with all his health problems, he lived much longer than he should have and was doing great. In fact, the day that he was put down, he was out here eating grass just like he normally would. Didn't even act like he couldn't see. He's walking around, scaring me to death because I thought he was going to like step into a hole and break his leg. But he was happy that day. Like, he was happy eating grass, just going along, doing his thing. And even when the vet arrived, he was like, I think you're making the right decision, just based off of the history of this horse, because it was our vet. He'd been with him for a while. And he said, just based off of the history of this horse and everything else, I think you're making a good decision. And even when he was put down, the vet was like, this is literally the fastest horse I've ever seen go down. So he was ready. But the important thing was, I knew that it wasn't going to be a good life for him. He wasn't going to have quality of life. He wasn't going to enjoy himself like he used to. And even though he could get around and function fine, it wasn't right for me just because of an emotional attachment that I kept him around. And I think that that's one thing that's very important as people who either own horses, dogs, cats, any kind of animal. Is their quality of life worth our emotional attachment, and vice versa? And that's the thing that we have to look at. And so it's just one thing that I was thinking about and one thing I had on my list to talk about, and it's a touchy subject. Hate thinking about it. I mean, I have Rio, and, he's getting older, but he walks around and acts like he's 15 most of the time. He's just lazy. But he's 21. So, I mean, I probably have another good 10 years. I think he'll make it to 30. So 9 years. And, those are things I have to think about. And who knows? He might be one of those world record setters who gets to 45. There's a horse in Australia that got to be 45 years old, was still alive, and still kicking. And he had great quality of life. And they would check on him every so often and make sure that his quality of life, there's different tests you can do to see, like, brain function, how everything's working, stuff like that. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you, and just another thing that you have to think about in the world of animals, horses, livestock, all that. And it's not easy. And, that's the one thing that sucks about animals is they don't live as long as we do. Unless they're parrots or something like that. There are some animals that do live as long as we do, and longer, for that matter, if you have a tortoise. So, anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.